Did you know that in Kentucky, there's a town where a dog has been elected honorary mayor multiple times, and the town itself is named after a food fight between rabbits? In Utah, there's a town whose entire name is just another word spelled back, chosen specifically because it sits at the exact geographic center of the state. And in Oregon, there's a town called Boring that's officially sister cities with the town in Scotland called Dull. Every state in the country has at least one town whose name makes you stop and ask, wait, who actually approved that? Today on Across the Globe, we're exploring the weirdest town name in every U.S. state. Let's get into it. Alabama, Smut-Eye. In Bullock County, Alabama, a tiny, unincorporated community carries the name Smut-Eye, and locals still repeat two competing origin stories with equal confidence. One version says a store owner burned his eye on a lamp's soot while measuring kerosene at night. The other claims a group of men got into a flower fight so messy it left them looking soot black, and the name just stuck to the place instead of the men. Neither story has been confirmed in any official record, and the town kept the name anyway. A community that's been arguing about its own origin story for longer than most towns have existed at all. Alaska, chicken. In interior Alaska, gold miners in the 1900s wanted to officially name their new settlement after their ptarmigan, the state bird they'd been living off of during the harsh winters. The problem was nobody in the mining camp could agree on how to spell ptarmigan, so rather than risk the embarrassment of getting it wrong on paper, they settled on chicken instead. The name stuck through multiple attempts to formalize it. The chicken remains an official, incorporated community to this day. An entire town's identity was decided by spelling anxiety instead of an actual vote. Arizona, Y. In southern Arizona, a small town sits at the exact junction where two highways meet in a Y shape, and it was originally supposed to be named Y for that reason. Arizona state law at the time required town names to have at least 3 letters, so the founders added 2 more and landed on WHY instead. The name turned an ordinary road intersection into one of the most photographed town signs in the state, purely because visitors can't resist asking the town's name out loud as a question. A legal technicality is the entire reason this town isn't just a single letter. Arkansas, Toad Suck. Along the Arkansas River, riverboat crews in the 1800s would dock at a local tavern and reportedly drink until they, in the words of local witnesses, swelled up like toad. The name Toadsuck stuck hard enough that the community built an annual festival around it, complete with a toad-themed logo the town proudly puts on official signage. When the U.S. Postal Service tried to standardize the name decades later, residents fought to keep it exactly as written. A town that could have quietly renamed itself out of embarrassment instead built a yearly celebration around the insult. California, Weed. Siskiyou in Siskiyou County, California. A town got its name in 1897 from founder Abner Weed, a lumber mill owner who had absolutely nothing to do with the plant the name now makes everyone assume. The coincidence became so distracting that the town leaned into it anyway, selling I Heart Weed merchandise at the local visitor centers for decades. City officials have had to publicly clarify the origin story so many times that it's now printed directly on tourism material. A lumber baron's last name accidentally became one of the most Instagram town signs in California for reasons that have nothing to do with lumber. Colorado, No Name. Along Interstate 70 in western Colorado, a small, unincorporated community is officially named No Name. And the story behind it is exactly what it sounds. When the interstate was being built through the area in the 1970s, highway crews needed a placeholder label for the exit sign while officials debated a real name. Nobody ever finished the debate, and the placeholder became permanent on state map. A town that's been waiting over 50 years for a name nobody ever got around to picking. Connecticut, Bozrah. In New London County, Connecticut, a small town carries the biblical name Bozrah, taken directly from an ancient city mentioned in the Old Testament as the capital of Edom. Connecticut's early Puritan settlers frequently pulled town names straight from Scripture, but Bozrah is one of the few that stuck without being simplified or anglicized over the century. Most residents today can't explain the biblical reference without looking it up, despite living there their whole life. A 17th century religious reference is still printed on driver's licenses in Connecticut, and most people who hold one have no idea why. Delaware, Blackbird. In Newcastle County, Delaware, a small hamlet is named Black, and local historians trace it back to Lenapesakim, a tribal leader. who European settlers referred to by the translator. The settlement grew up around a colonial-era tavern that took the same name, and the Crossroads community kept it long after the original tavern disappeared. Unlike many colonial place names that got replaced or modernized, Blackbird has stayed functionally unchanged on maps since the 1700s. A single Lenape leader's name has outlasted the tavern, the original settlement, and pretty much everything else from the era except the road sign. Florida, Two Egg. In the Florida Panhandle, the community of Two Egg got its name during the Great Depression, when locals at a general store started bartering literal chicken eggs for goods instead of cash. Two specific families reportedly became known for consistently trading exactly 2 eggs at a time, and travelers began referring to the Crossroads store as the Two Egg Place, out of habit. The informal nickname eventually replaced whatever the original town name had been on record. A barter system born out of economic hardship ended up permanently rewriting the town's identity on state maps. Georgia, hope you like it. In Bullock County, Georgia, a small, unincorporated community is named Hope You Like It, and it comes direct from a roadhouse that operated there decades ago under the same name. The building's owner reportedly chose the name specifically as a pun aimed at travelers deciding whether to stop in, daring them to read it out loud. The roadhouse itself has long since closed, but the name outlived the business entirely and became the community's official identity. A bar's marketing gimmick from generations ago is still the only reason this dot exists on a Georgia map. Hawaii, Volcano. On the Big Island of Hawaii, a small town sits just outside Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and it's literally named Volcano because of how close it is to an active. Residents live with the reality that Kilauea, one of the most active volcanoes on Earth, has erupted repeatedly within a few miles of their homes over the past several decades. Unlike most towns with dramatic names chosen for tourism appeal, Volcano's name is closer to a straightforward warning labeled than a gimmick. A town that named itself after the exact natural disaster its residents have to keep. Idaho, Atomic City. In southeastern Idaho, a tiny community was renamed Atomic City in the 1950s after a nearby experimental nuclear reactor became the first in the world to generate usable electricity. The town briefly boomed with government scientists and workers during the height of the Cold War-era nuclear optimism, expecting to become a major hub for atomic-powered industry. That boom never fully materialized, and Atomic City's population shrank to a few dozen residents while keeping the ambitious name from its brief moment of relevance. A ghost of Cold War optimism still shows up on road signs decades after the excitement that inspired it quietly moved on. Illinois, Oblong. In eastern Illinois, the town of Oblong gets its name from the unusually elongated shape of the original land parcel surveyed when the settlement was founded in the 1800s. Rather than naming the town after a founder or geographic landmark like most surrounding communities, early settlers apparently just described the literal shape of the plot and left it at that. The name became such a local point of pride that the town's welcome sign leans into it directly. A description meant purely as surveying shorthand somehow became the town's permanent identity instead of an actual name. Indiana, Santa Claus. In southern Indiana, the town of Santa Claus got its current name in 1856 after townspeople rejected several other proposed names during a contentious town meeting held right around Christmas time. Legend says a gust of wind blew open the church door as someone shouted, "Santa Claus!" and the room took it as a sign. The town leans so hard into the identity that its post office still processes hundreds of thousands of letters addressed to Santa every December, all personally answered by local volunteers. A rejected town meeting turned into the reason kids across the world get real letters back from the United States Post Office signed by Santa himself. Iowa, Whatcheer. Keokuk County, Iowa. The town of Whatcheer likely gets its name from an Old English greeting, roughly meaning, "How are you?" brought over by early Quaker settlers in the area. A popular but unconfirmed local legend claims a coal mine owner named it as a joke after searching for coal and shouting the phrase upon finally striking a vein. Historians can't fully confirm either explanation, and the town has embraced the ambiguity rather than trying to settle it. A 300-year-old English greeting somehow ended up as an Iowa coal town's permanent name, and nobody's fully sure which version of the story is even true. Kansas, Gas. In Allen County, Kansas, the town of Gas got its blunt, one-word name directly from the natural gas deposits discovered underneath it in the late 1800s, which briefly powered a local economic boom. Glass factories and other gas-dependent industries moved in during the boom years, drawn specifically by the cheap, abundant fuel sitting right under the town. When the gas fields eventually ran dry, most of the industry left, but the name stayed exactly as blunt as the day it was chosen. A town named after the exact resource that built it, then abandoned it, and never bothered updating the sign either way. Kentucky, Rabbit Hash. Along the Ohio River in Boone County, Kentucky, the town of Rabbit Hash got its name after a major flood in the 1800s forced residents to survive largely on rabbit meat for weeks. The name stuck hard enough that the town's general store, built in 1831 and still standing, has become a local landmark built around the same joke. Rabbit Hash is also famous nationally for repeatedly electing dogs as its honorary mayor in town elections that draw national media attention every cycle. A flood-era survival food became a permanent town name that a literal dog has now represented in multiple times. Louisiana, Waterproof. In Tensas Parish, Louisiana, the town of Waterproof sits directly along the Mississippi River and got its name from the 19th century steamboat captains who used it as a landmark that reliably stayed above flood level. The irony deepened over the decades as the Mississippi's shifting course repeatedly threatened the town with the exact flooding its name was meant to guarantee protection from. Despite the multiple serious floods over the years, including ones that damaged large parts of town, residents have never seriously considered changing the name. A town has spent close to 2 centuries proving its own name wrong on a semi-regular basis, and is keeping it anyway. Maine, China. In Kennebec County, Maine, the town of China was named in 1818, reportedly after a local pond that early settlers thought resembled a landscape painting depicting the country of China. Unlike most oddly named towns that come from puns or accidents, China's name was apparently a genuine, sincere aesthetic choice made by its founders. The town includes villages within it named South China and China Village, layering the reference even further into the local geography. A pond's resemblance to a painting is the entire reason a small New England town shares its name with the most populous country on earth. Maryland, Boring. In Carroll County, Maryland, the town of Boring is named after David Boring, a local postmaster who ran the town's post office in the late 1800s and simply had it named after his own last name. The irony of the name has made it a minor tourist novelty, with visitors regularly stopping just to photograph the town limit sign for a joke. Unlike Oregon's more famous Boring, Maryland's version has no formal sister city arrangement, though residents are aware of the coincidence. A postmaster's ordinary surname turned into an entire town's punchline purely by coincidence of timing. Massachusetts, Athol. In Worcester County, Massachusetts, the town of Athol was named in 1762 after the Duke of Athol in Scotland, honoring a British nobleman who had no direct connection to the town itself. The pronunciation and spelling have caused the same predictable joke for well over 250 years, something the town has had to publicly address on its own municipal website. Despite generations of jokes, no serious renaming effort has ever gained traction locally. A colonial-era tribute to a Scottish duke has been quietly embarrassing teenagers in this town for nearly 3 centuries. Michigan, Hell. In Livingston County, Michigan, the town of Hell has at least 3 competing origin stories, including one claiming German settlers exclaimed, "So schön hell," meaning so beautifully bright, when describing the area's clearings. A more popular version credits founder George Reeves, who reportedly told people to call it hell when asked what to name the settlement in the 1830s. The town fully commercializes the name today, selling novelty marriage certificates that lets couples say they got married in hell. A throwaway answer from a frustrated 1830s founder turned into one of the most searched-for wedding destinations in the entire state. Minnesota, Climax. In Polk County, Minnesota, the tiny town of Climax got its name in the 1890s from a brand of chewing tobacco that was reportedly popular among the railroad workers who founded the settlement. The name has caused enough modern-day snickering that the town has had to field media requests purely about the name itself for decades. Despite the attention, and despite the town's population sitting under 250 people, no serious renaming effort has ever taken hold. A discontinued 19th century tobacco brand still gets more attention today than the actual town that named itself after it. Mississippi. Hot coffee. In Covington County, Mississippi, the community of Hot Coffee is named after an inn that operated along a stagecoach route in the 1800s, advertising fresh hot coffee to travelers as its main selling point. The inn itself burned down generations ago, and no trace of the original building remains today, but the name outlived the business by well over a century. Modern residents have leaned into the legacy, and the local convenience store still makes a point of serving actual coffee to travelers passing through. A single roadside marketing pitch from 2 centuries ago is the entire reason this dot still exists on the Mississippi map. Missouri. Peculiar. In Cass County, Missouri, the town of Peculiar got its unusual name after the U.S. Postal Service rejected several proposed town names in the 1860s for being too similar to existing towns elsewhere in the state. Frustrated, a local resident reportedly said they didn't care what the name was so long as it was peculiar, and postal officials took the word choice literally. The town has fully embraced the identity, using the slogan, "Where the odds are with you," on official welcome signs. A rejected paperwork process accidentally created one of the most self-aware town names in the entire country. Montana. Ismay. In eastern Montana, the tiny town of Ismay briefly and officially renamed itself Joe Montana in 1993 in a publicity stunt tied to the retired NFL quarterback of the same name. The stunt was designed to draw tourism and media attention to a town whose population had dwindled to under 30 people. The name change generated national headlines for a short period before the town quietly reverted back to its original name, Ismay, once the publicity faded. A struggling ranching town borrowed a football legend's name for exactly long enough to get noticed, then gave it right back. Nebraska. Wahoo. In Saunders County, Nebraska, the town of Wahoo takes its name from a Native American word believed to reference either the wahoo shrub that grew locally or a nearby creek referred to by an Omaha or an Oto term. The name became widely recognizable nationally, mainly because Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Sam Crawford, nicknamed Wahoo Sam, was born there and carried the town's name with him throughout his career. The town leans into the baseball connection today with a dedicated local museum honoring Crawford. A shrub's name and a Hall of Fame baseball nickname are permanently tangled together in the same small Nebraska town. Nevada. Jackpot. Near the Idaho border, the town of Jackpot, Nevada, was founded in 1954 specifically because Idaho residents crossing the state line for legal gambling needed somewhere to actually gamble once Nevada's side of the border opened up casinos. The name was chosen deliberately, unlike most towns on this list, as a direct and honest advertisement for exactly what the town offered. Jackpot remains almost entirely built around casino tourism to this day, functioning less like an accident of history and more like a permanent billboard. One of the few towns on this entire list whose weird name isn't an accident at all, just blunt honesty about its business model. New Hampshire. Sandwich. In Carroll County, New Hampshire, the town of Sandwich was named in 1763 after the Earl of Sandwich, the same British nobleman the food is named after, honoring him the same way colonial towns paid tribute to British aristocracy. The town has no historical connection whatsoever to the actual food item, despite the identical spelling causing confusion for centuries. Sandwich has embraced the coincidence over time, particularly around tourist season, without ever formally acknowledging any real link between the two. A British nobleman's title accidentally created two completely unrelated American icons, a town and a lunch, both stuck sharing his name forever. New Jersey. Hohokus. In Bergen County, New Jersey, the town of Hohokus gets its name from the Lenape word believed to mean red cedar, or the Red Clay Valley, referencing the national landscape long before European settlers arrived. Colonial settlers preserved the native pronunciation almost entirely intact, unlike many other Lenape place names in the region that were angelicized or replaced outright over time. The triple-syllable rhythm of the name has made it a local point of pride, printed prominently on the town's own welcome signage. One of the few towns in this entire list whose seemingly silly-sounding name is actually one of the most historically preserved native place names in the whole state. New Mexico. Truth or consequences? In Sierra County, New Mexico, The town formerly known as Hot Springs officially changed its name in 1950 after the popular NBC radio and TV game show Truth or Consequences offered to broadcast its 10th anniversary episode live from any town willing to rename itself after the show. Local officials held a public vote, and the town accepted the offer, permanently changing its legal name rather than doing a temporary publicity stunt like similar towns elsewhere. The show's host personally visited every year afterward for a local festival that continues decades after the program itself went off the air. A radio game show's marketing gimmick is the only reason an entire town legally changed its own government paperwork forever. New York. Horseheads. In Chemchung County, New York, the town of Horseheads gets its grim name from the aftermath of General John Sullivan's 1779 military campaign against Native American settlements, during which exhausted and injured Continental Army pack horses had to be put down along the route. Soldiers reportedly left the horse skulls exposed along the trail, and Seneca residents who returned to the area afterward began referring to the location using the same grim landmark. The name has stayed official for over 240 years, despite the difficult history behind it. A wartime tragedy from before the country was even fully formed still labels this town's exit sign on the interstate today. North Carolina. Bat Cave. In Henderson County, North Carolina, the community of Bat Cave is named after a genuine, massive granite cave system nearby that serves as one of the largest known bat habitats in the entire southeastern United States. Unlike most towns on this list, the name isn't a joke, pun, or accident at all. It's a completely literal description of the actual geological feature the town sits next to. The cave itself is protected today as part of a state park specifically because of the size and importance of its bat colonies. A town with a name that sounds like a comic book joke turns out to be one of the few entries on this list that's exactly, literally true. North Dakota. Zap. In Mercer County, North Dakota, the small town of Zap got its short, punchy name from a coal mining company that founded the settlement in the early 1900s, reportedly chosen simply because it was easy to say in print. The name gained brief national infamy in 1969 when college students, inspired by a joke in the school newspaper, attempted to descend on the tiny town for a spring break riot event named Zip to Zap. The event spiraled into an actual small riot requiring National Guard, embarrassing the town that had done nothing to invite the attention. A coal company's quick, punchy name decision briefly turned an entire town into a National Guard deployment decades later. Ohio. Knock 'em Stiff. In Ross County, Ohio, the unincorporated community of Knock 'em Stiff carries a name whose exact origin nobody has ever definitely nailed down, though most local legends point to a specific brawl or series of brawls at a local establishment decades ago. The name gained wider national attention after author Donald Ray Pollock, who grew up there, used it as a title of a short story collection depicting the hardship of the region. Unlike towns that lean into a fun or quirky name, Knock 'em Stiff's reputation is tied more to a grit than novelty. A community named after violence it can't even fully explain became a literary landmark almost by accident. Oklahoma. Slapout. In Beaver County, Oklahoma, the tiny community of Slapout gets its name from a general store owner who, according to local legend, would tell customers he was slap out of whatever item they'd asked for so often that travelers started using the phrase as the store's informal name. The original store eventually closed, but a new one reopened decades later under the same name, intentionally preserving the joke rather than picking something more conventional. The town's population has hovered in the single digits for years, making it one of the smallest named places on this entire list. A shopkeeper's constant apology for empty shelves became more permanent than the shelves, the store, or nearly everyone who shopped there. Oregon. Boring. In Clackamas County, Oregon, the town of Boring is named after William Boring, a Civil War veteran and early settler who had the community named after himself in the late 1800s, with no relation whatsoever to the adjective. In 2013, local officials formally arranged a sister city partnership with Dull, Scotland, and later added Bland, Australia, specifically because of the shared joke of the names. Signs marking the partnership are proudly displayed at the town's entrance today. A Civil War veteran's last name eventually connected three towns on three different continents through nothing but a shared adjective none of them actually chose on purpose. Pennsylvania. Intercourse. In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the Amish country town of Intercourse likely gets its name from either an old racetrack called Intercourse near the town or from the historical use of the word to simply mean fellowship or social interaction among neighbors. The name predates the word's modern connotation by well over a century, and the town has had to repeatedly explain the historical meaning to bewildered tourists. Despite constant jokes and stolen road signs over the decades, the community has never seriously considered a rename, viewing the confusion as an unwelcome but unavoidable cost to preserving its actual history. A perfectly innocent 18th century word choice has been quietly fighting off modern mockery for well over 200 years. Rhode Island. Usquepaug. In South Kingston, Rhode Island, the towny village of Usquepaug takes its name from a Narragansett word believed to reference a body of water or a specific geographic feature in the area, preserved largely intact from before European settlement. Unlike many indigenous place names in New England that were anglicized or replaced outright, Usquepaug survived mostly unchanged into modern usage, appearing on official state maps and roadsides today. Few residents outside the immediate area can confidently pronounce or spell it without practice. A pre-colonial Narragansett word has outlasted centuries of English place naming trends purely by being just difficult enough that nobody bothered replacing it. South Carolina. 96. In Greenwood County, South Carolina, the town of 96 gets its numeric name from its historical distance measured in miles, from a Cherokee village called Kiowa, according to colonial-era traders who used the distance as a practical trail marker. Modern historians have disputed the exact accuracy of that original mileage measurement, but the name had already stuck by the time anyone tried to correct it. The town preserves its colonial and Revolutionary War history today at a National Historic Site built directly around the same numeric name. A rough, possibly inaccurate mileage estimate from the 18th century traders became a permanent official town name that modern GPS technology has never bothered to update. South Dakota. T. In Lincoln County, South Dakota, the small town of T likely gets its name either from a nearby creek referenced on early survey maps or, according to a competing local legend, from a resident's simple suggestion made during a naming meeting because she was in the middle of drinking a cup at the time. Unlike towns with more dramatic origin stories, T's brevity and lack of firmly settled explanation has become its main claim to fame locally. The town has grown substantially in recent decades as a suburb of nearby Sioux Falls, all while keeping its two-letter, single-syllable name completely unchanged. A possibly accidental beverage reference has stayed exactly the same while literally everything else about the town around it has grown and modernized. Tennessee. Bucksnort. In Hickman County, Tennessee, the community of Bucksnort likely gets its name from a colorful description of deer or bucks making loud snorting warning sounds in the surrounding wooded hills, according to most wildly repeated local explanation. A separate, less common local story ties the name to a particularly rowdy roadside tavern, following a naming pattern seen in several other southern towns on this list. Regardless of which origin is accurate, the name has become locally beloved enough that it appears on novelty merchandise sold at the area's remaining businesses. A description of deer noises in the woods somehow became more permanent than most of the actual businesses that have opened and closed under the name since. Texas. Uncertain. In Harrison County, Texas, the town of Uncertain gets its fittingly vague name from the genuine confusion 19th century surveyors faced trying to establish an official boundary line along the unpredictable, shifting waters of nearby Cadu Lake. Early residents reportedly couldn't even agree on whether their settlement legally sat in Texas or neighboring Louisiana for a period of time, adding another layer to the uncertainty. The town formally incorporated under the name in 1961, essentially making the confusion permanent and official rather than resolving it. A surveying dispute that nobody could actually settle got turned into the literal legal name of a town instead of ever being fixed. Utah. Levin. In Schwab County, Utah, the town of Levin is named simply because it sits at what settlers determined to be the exact geographic center of the state, and Levin is just the word navel spelled backward. The reasoning was intentionally literal, treating the town's location the same way you'd describe the center point of a human body. Unlike towns with elaborate or disputed origin stories, Lieven's naming logic has never been up for debate since the day it was chosen. A single geographic measurement, read backward, is the entire and complete explanation for this town's name, with zero ambiguity involved at any point. Vermont, Satan's Kingdom. In Whittingham, Vermont, a small area historically known as Satan's Kingdom got its ominous name sometime in the 1700s or 1800s, with local legend attributing it to the rough, hard-to-farm terrain that early settlers reportedly found nearly impossible to work or tame. Some versions of the story also point to a reputation of lawlessness or rowdy behavior among the small population that originally settled there. The name has persisted on local maps and in town records despite the otherwise ordinary, quiet character of the area today. A description of the impossible to farmland and rough settlers from over 2 centuries ago is still technically on the books in one of the most peaceful-seeming states in the country. Virginia, Bumpus. In Louisa County, Virginia, the small community of Bumpus is named after a local family surname, common among settlers in the region during the colonial and early American periods. The name has caused enough persistent snickering over the generations that the local post office has had to specifically address pronunciation questions from confused mail carriers and visitors for years. Despite the ongoing jokes, the Bumpus family name is documented extensively in regional, genealogical, and historical records, tying the town's identity directly to real, traceable ancestry. An ordinary colonial-era family surname has been embarrassing school kids on the bus for generations, purely by accident at birth. Washington, George. In Grant County, Washington, the town of George was deliberately named in 1957 specifically to honor George Washington, making it one of the only towns in the country literally named George as a first-name tribute to the president rather than a surname reference. Founders leaned so hard into the bit that the town streets carry cherry-themed names referencing the famous, likely apocryphal cherry tree legend associated with Washington's childhood. Every 4th of July, the town famously bakes an enormous cherry pie as its main civic event. A deliberate, very literal presidential pun turned into an entire town's annual identity and its biggest tourist draw. West Virginia, Odd. In Nicholas County, West Virginia, the small community of Odd carries a name whose origin nobody has fully documented, with most local explanations simply pointing out that early settlers reportedly couldn't agree on a proper name and settled for describing the situation itself. Unlike towns with elaborate legends attached, Odd's story is notably thin on detail, which residents have come to find fitting, given the name itself. The lack of a dramatic origin story hasn't stopped the tiny community from embracing the label on local signage anyway. A town that couldn't settle on a real name ended up with the most honest possible description of the exact problem instead. Wisconsin, Spread Eagle. In Florence County, Wisconsin, the small community of Spread Eagle likely gets its patriotic-sounding name from an early tavern or hotel that operated under the same name, following the same naming pattern seen in several southern and midwestern towns on this list. The exact founding date and full backstory of the original establishment have been lost over time, with most surviving details passed down informally rather than documented in official records. The name has stuck regardless, appearing on official Wisconsin road signage exactly as originally written. A patriotic tavern name from a business nobody can precisely date anymore is still technically the last word in this town's official government paperwork. Wyoming, Chugwater. In Platte County, Wyoming, the town of Chugwater takes its name from the sound bison reportedly made when native hunters drove entire herds off a nearby cliff into the creek below as part of a traditional buffalo jump hunting technique. The word is often translated as referencing the literal chug sound of the animals hitting the water at the base of the cliff during the hunt. The technique itself required precise coordination among hunters to funnel massive herds toward the exact location, making the site historically and culturally significant well beyond its name. A hunting technique sound effect passed down for generations is still the entire reason this Wyoming town says what it says on the map today.